Warning, make sure you have your coffee or a snack or that comfy blanket to settle in with because this one's going to take a little longer. Okay, here's the deal. Back in 2014, the American Library Association recorded a grand total of 235 instances of book challenges in the United States. When examining those challenges more closely, it was found they were actually for only 183 unique titles, with Sherman Alexie's The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian being the title that led the charge. In 2015, there were 230 challenge attempts which spanned 193 different titles. 2016, 189 attempts on 208 books. You kind of see a trend here. The numbers vary from year to year, but not by much, all the way through 2020, when there was only 121 documented attempts for book bans spanning 231 different titles. Then, that's when things change. In the year 2021, the American Library Association documented 602 attempts for bans that spanned a total of 1,858 different books. In 2022, that number grew larger with 1,031 calls for bans on 2,571 titles. And in 2023, the number of attempts were slightly less, with 938. But don't get too excited because the number of books included in those censorship pushes, 4,240. And those are only the book bans reported directly through channels to the American Library Association. According to PEN America, the highest number of book bans ever recorded in this country happened between 2023 and 2024, where over 10,000 different bans were called for on over 4,000 books. PEN America also reports that of the books included in those bans, 44% include characters of color. 39 have characters that identify as LGBTQ+. 57 are due to alleged sex-related themes, which range from picture books helping kids understand that mom's going to have a baby, to a girl getting her period for the first time, to teenagers and adults hooking up. And while there are lots of different categories of books getting banned, around 60% of all calls for book bans are aimed at books written for young adults. These are books which depict topics like grief, substance abuse, depression, mental health issues, suicide, and sexual violence. Things, unfortunately, our young adults far too often experience in their own lives. Between 2020 and 2021, something big happened. And if you think that the books being published are just suddenly wildly different, yeah, I can assure you that's not it. I can name dozens of books, including my own book, The Testing, that have recently been placed on to-be-banned lists in state districts where they were once on the state's reading list and nominated for state book awards. So what changed? Well, I don't find it a coincidence that the rise of book bans occurred at the exact same time a candidate for the Virginia governor's mansion raided his campaign on the platform of "Get CRT out of our elementary and high schools because it's doing harm to the kids." Suddenly, thanks to that successful campaign and the fact it was basically the only big election happening in this country at the time, CRT became the buzzword for everything wrong in education and the history kids were learning and the books they were being allowed to read. Just like that starting pistol sounded and the book ban race to the bottom began in earnest. Now, if you've heard about CRT and you don't know what it is, get in line. I've seen dozens of interviews and tuned into school board meetings across the country where angry people rail against CRT. And when pushed, they don't have a clue how to define it. They just say they know it when they see it and they just keep on yelling. It's become a catch-all for people who just don't like anything that disagrees with what they want to believe. So, what is it actually? Well, it's an acronym for an academic concept created by Derek Bell, Kimberly Crenshaw, Richard Delgado, and more, called critical race theory, which teaches law students, that's kind of important, law students, to analyze the historical reasons for the creation of our laws and institutions to see if bias might have played a part. A class in CRT requires poring over decades and centuries worth of old legal documents. Yeah, try to imagine that being taught in our grade schools where they're trying to get kids to write incomplete sentences. it would be laughable if the effects of using the CRT boogeyman weren't so terrifying. Especially since the concept of unequal in our laws based on race and also on gender, but I'll get started on that probably another time, that isn't new. Frederick Douglass's 1852 "What to the American Slave is Your 4th of July" speech in Rochester, New York, it's an unflinching attempt to address the inequality written in the United States Constitution. And that was 5 years before the 1857 Dred Scott Supreme Court decision that my son recently studied in AP US history, where the court ruled that ancestors of anyone brought to this country and sold as slaves weren't numbered among their states as actual people and thus do not get the same rights as other citizens under the Constitution. No, they really said that. And you see it again in the Supreme Court's 1896 Plessy versus Ferguson ruling, where they didn't condemn the racial distinction in our country's laws. They actually held it up as legitimate. Yeah, those rulings have since been overturned, but our legal history, it's dark and it's filled with errors that we can only change for the better when we understand them. That's what critical race theory was created for, and why other occupations have started to apply similar lenses to their work in order for them to do better. Clearly, doing better isn't the goal for those citing the CRT boogeyman when going after books and the history being taught in our classrooms, without first trying to learn what CRT actually is and what happened in the past that makes it necessary for studying our laws and institutions now. All of this means that we, you and I, all of us watching these videos, we have to be the ones to do better. The numbers prove I'm not overreacting when I tell you that book bans are on the rise. And they don't just signal a problem for authors and publishers, teachers, kids, parents. Book bans have been the canary in the coal mine for democracy for forever. And clearly that canary has been singing far too faintly for most people to hear. It's a song that cannot be ignored any longer. Not if we want to be the people that we hope to be, the ones that actually do better. Now is the time you have to pay attention, to arm yourself with the truth, to speak out about that truth and keep speaking out to people who don't even want to listen to you. That's what our heroes in the past have done. And we all need to be those heroes now. That's the only way we're going to keep our country going so that we have the chance to do better. This right now, this is the time to show up, to hear that canary singing and to use the power of your words to fight.